Michelle thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better.
Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama. He ripped the glossy packaging right off her curated image and tossed it into the shredder with a smirk. In a takedown that mixed razor-sharp sarcasm with surgical precision, Gutfeld exposed the gulf between her polished public persona and the political game she's been quietly playing. It wasn't just commentary, it was a controlled demolition of her untouchable aura. By the end, even her most loyal fans were blinking, wondering if the Queen of Grace had lost her grip on the truth.
To use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump. So, Kat, they know that they're having a hard time with men.
Right.
Doesn't seem like this is the right strategy.
No.
She basically says that they're hurt.
Greg Gutfeld didn't walk into the studio that night. He strutted, the kind of strut that says, I've got something in the chamber, and it's about to ruin someone's publicist's entire weekend. The topic of the evening, none other than Michelle Obama, First Lady turned media mogul turned podcast guru turned queen of strategic vagueness with a Nike sponsorship. And Gutfeld, he came in swinging like a caffeinated raccoon with a grudge and a microphone. Let's talk about Michelle, he said, twirling his pen like a dagger.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind. Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
If you are enjoying this breakdown, please make sure to subscribe. Boom! The table was set. Gutfeld kept slicing. Her memoir is called Becoming, as in becoming a billionaire, for talking about how tough it is to live in a mansion when people still expect you to smile at them. Then came the real twist. Have you noticed the pattern? He asked. Every interview is a masterclass in strategic victimhood. Michelle is always overcoming, she's always rising, which is impressive considering she's been on top for like 15 years. The crowd laughed harder this time, because beneath the satire, there was a truth so sharp you could feel it hit.
Rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Now, don't get me wrong, Gutfeld said, feigning innocence like a cat with feathers in its mouth. She's smart, she's charismatic, she's accomplished. But let's not pretend she's some underdog climbing out of the rubble. She's not Rocky Balboa. She's a corporate sponsor Yoda with a stylist. Cue a montage of her speaking tours, branded lunchboxes, and podcast segments where she unironically talks about struggling to find balance while standing in a designer kitchen the size of a Whole Foods. Gutfeld paused dramatically. We are being sold a brand, a lifestyle, Michelle Obama MM, and guess what? It's not about empowering you, it's about marketing to you. It's inspirational capitalism wrapped in Instagram captions. And then he brought out the hammer. She claims she doesn't want to run for president, he said, raising an eyebrow, and maybe she doesn't. But that hasn't stopped her from giving speeches that sound suspiciously like campaign warm-ups. You know, just in case America gets nostalgic for soaring rhetoric that says absolutely nothing.
Maybe so, but her analysis seems a symptom of a greater problem that contributed to her party's loss. It goes back to seeing the group and not the person. I call it IPB, identity politics blindness. They lost not because Hillary was a woman, they lost because all they saw was a woman. Meanwhile, Trump took nothing for granted. Fact is, many voters would have happily voted for a woman, just not that one. Because unlike Trump, she didn't speak to their concerns, she only spoke of her entitlement. She just assumed that she had the vote. And just assuming a woman must vote for a woman seems pretty insulting from a man. Humans are more complex, surprising, and interesting then liberals give them.
That line, lethal. Gutfeld mimicked her tone, arms wide, voice syrupy. We need to rise above. We need to come together. We need to hope. We need to buy my hardcover edition for $29.99, now available in Target. The crowd roared. Then he zeroed in on her favorite card to play, the martyr card. Michelle loves reminding us how hard it was to live in the White House, he said. How she felt like she had to be perfect, couldn't mess up, couldn't be too black, couldn't be too loud. You know, like every other first lady who had to host dinners and decorate Christmas trees. He paused and added dryly, except none of the others landed a post-White House podcast produced by Barack Obama and featuring Michelle Obama. That's like writing your own 5-star Yelp review. Now the gloves were fully off. Gutfeld pulled no punches. She talks about imposter syndrome. While being one of the most celebrated, praised, and protected public figures of our time, lady, if you're an imposter, what chance do the rest of us have? You're everywhere. You're on my Wheaties box, my Spotify algorithm, and somehow even in my dreams.
Michelle Obama has openly admitted that she and Barack sleep in separate bedrooms. Here's how it works. She sleeps downstairs, and he likes men.
Michelle Obama is the algorithm. He leaned back, deadpan. We used to say Big Brother is watching. Now, Big Michelle is podcasting. And yet, just when you thought he was done, Gutfeld revved up for the grand finale. Michelle's real power isn't her charm, it's her untouchability. She's bulletproof. You criticize her and suddenly you're a sexist, a racist, a monster. But if she sells you recycled platitudes with a $90 0-cent candle and a motivational playlist, that's called leadership. The audience was half shocked, half delighted. They weren't used to hearing someone tear into Michelle Obama with this much energy, precision, and dare we say glee. But it's curated, it's manufactured, it's politics as lifestyle branding. He sipped and added casually, at this point, the only thing more polished than her PR team is her arms. And just when the laughter began to settle, Gutfeld dropped the line that sent social media into a collective aneurysm. She didn't become, folks, she became a franchise.
In the latest installment of What Happened in an Election That Occurred a Year and a Half Ago, Michelle Obama was asked how Trump won, and she laid the blame on Hillary. Just kidding, she blames sexism from women against women.
In light of this last election, I'm concerned about us as women and how we think. If we're not comfortable with the notion that a woman could be our president, compared to what? You know, we have to have that conversation with ourselves.
And the product is self-importance with a side of kale. The room cracked, but it didn't end there. Gutfeld turned serious for just a beat. Not too serious, just enough to remind you there was more than sarcasm behind the smirk. The real danger, he said, isn't Michelle herself. It's that we keep falling for the same trick. Glossy speeches, emotional buzzwords, vague empowerment, all used to distract from the fact that underneath all that inspiration, the machine keeps running the same. And that hit different. Because Greg Gutfeld wasn't just making fun of Michelle Obama. He was deconstructing the entire political celebrity industrial complex she so perfectly represents. He wasn't mocking her achievements. He was asking why they came wrapped in so many layers of media varnish and soft focus lighting. Why do we confuse being visible with being real? Why do we applaud someone for being relatable when their version of a hard day involves deciding between a TED Talk or a Vogue cover? And then, like a sniper with a punchline instead of a rifle, he finished it.
Michelle's been busy working on a new podcast, and so far, it's been a flop. The first 2 episodes have been up all day and only gotten a few thousand views on YouTube. Half of them are probably primetime producers. But still, Michelle's spilling the family secrets, like how Barry gets on her nerves. Listen.
Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was for me.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom. And I was like, dude, like 3 o'clock departure means you've done all that, It's like, don't start looking for your glasses, at the 3 o'clock.
She's not leading a movement. She's leading a marketing campaign, and we're the ones buying it, along with her athleisure collection. Mic drop. But this wasn't just destruction, it was a disruption. Gutfeld didn't just dismantle Michelle Obama's image, he cracked open the shiny shell that surrounds every political figure turned lifestyle influencer. Because in the end, it wasn't about left or right, it was about real or fake. And Greg Gutfeld, love him or hate him, has a nose for the fake like a bloodhound on espresso. So when he aimed at Michelle Obama, he wasn't targeting her as a person. He was targeting the fog machine, the spotlight, and the echo chamber. He was saying what nobody else on primetime would dare say out loud, that maybe, just maybe, most relatable woman in America is just another curated illusion, perfectly designed to keep you inspired, distracted, and comfortably asleep. And whether you agreed or not, one thing was clear. Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama, he uninstalled the myth. And just when the echoes of laughter started to die down, Gutfeld leaned in like a villain, revealing the last page of the plot twist.
I'm going to talk to you about Michelle Obama's ongoing midlife meltdown, like her, like as you put it, her Stegosaurus hairdos. The utterance the other day, she says she's transitioning. I mean, I think we both know what she's trying to do by using that word.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of all of this? Like, what's going on in that psyche?
I think that transitioning line was meant to get attention because her podcast is failing. No one wants to watch it, and she's not used to that. You know, she's used to being the center of attention. Everyone's interested in me. I don't have to try hard. And so now she...
Let's talk about the kids, he said with a grin, because every good franchise needs a sequel, and Michelle's got it lined up like Marvel Phase 4, the foundation work, the youth outreach, the college initiative. But here's the kicker. When was the last time any of those programs produced measurable results? We don't get outcomes, we get merch. The camera cut to a smirking panelist nodding while the audience braced for impact. See, this is the part nobody wants to say out loud, he continued. Most of Michelle's legacy is vibes, it's emotional resonance. It's curated playlists and stage lighting, and speeches about perseverance backed by a gospel choir. And sure, it feels good, it always does. But you know what else feels good? A warm bath. That doesn't mean it's fixing the damn pipes. He wasn't wrong. The carefully orchestrated emotional messaging had become Michelle's primary currency, but Gutfeld wasn't buying it. Not tonight. Her TED Talks are motivational Mad Libs, he said. You are powerful. You are enough. You are seen. Great. Now tell that to the small business owner being crushed by regulations.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it. I regret that. Whoopi Gold.
Tell that to the working parent who doesn't have time to reflect on their power because they're too busy driving for Uber after their night shift. Now it was getting real. This isn't just about Michelle, Gutfeld clarified. This is about the culture she helped sculpt. A world where sincerity is replaced with slogans. Where making a difference just means changing your profile picture. He was rolling now. Not angry, but fired up. Like someone finally saying what the entire room had been thinking for years, but didn't have the nerve to articulate. You can't be the voice of the voiceless when you're speaking from a $12,000 0-cents couch under a halo light with your chef in the next room. Boom. Pin drop. And then he did the unthinkable. He compared Michelle's cultural influence to an iPhone commercial. Looks sleek, sounds progressive. Everyone wants one. But the moment it glitches or doesn't deliver, you blame the user, not the system. Michelle Obama is Apple politics. Shiny, expensive, and somehow always immune to criticism. The metaphor was absurd and perfect. She sells empowerment like Starbucks sells identity, he added. Personalized, pleasant, and of course, wildly overpriced.
Other than the wonderful Megyn Kelly in the United States. Now, why is Michelle Obama whinging? She seems to always be whinging. Why are things so hard for her right now?
I know. I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about anything. And the latest example was when she went on this other guy's podcast, Jay Shetty. She goes and sits down with him, and he asks her, what are you afraid of? And she starts off by saying, well, my fears aren't for me. I think about the streets. My fears aren't for me.
Well, in this current climate, for me, it's,
Someone in the crowd lost it, audible snorting laughter. Gutfeld gave them a nod like a conductor acknowledging his symphony. Then came the closing argument. The moment you could feel was coming, but still landed like a thunderclap. She doesn't need to run for office, he said calmly. Because she already governs something more powerful than policy, perception. She's the empress of optics. And when you control how people feel more than what they think, you don't need a ballot. You have something stronger, unquestioned influence. Now, it wasn't just a roast, it was a revelation. Gutfeld leaned back, hands folded. Michelle's superpower isn't her intelligence. What she really is your brand manager. And guess what? You're not the client. You're the product. Silence. Then uproarious laughter and applause, because in one fell swoop, Greg Gutfeld had done what so few dared attempt. He stripped away the glow, the glam, and the curated mystique of America's polished icon and revealed the calculated machinery underneath. Not out of malice, not out of partisanship, but because someone had to lift the curtain. And Greg Gutfeld, he brought a flamethrower.